All right, welcome to a new topic, everybody. It's weird to do it in this form. I feel like I haven't done any videos since lockdown. So hopefully it works all right. Sorry for my absence today. Always comes at the worst timing, but I thought this would be better than having no contact with me at all. So hopefully you guys have the printout for the first few pages. I'll give you the full booklet when we get a chance. Do you want to know I'm in next time to print it out? So a new topic. It's under the category of peace and conflict. I could choose from a range of different topics for this one. I went with conflict in Europe, 1935 to 45, for obvious reasons. It links so well into our core, the rise of dictators, as well as what we've just looked at for the Soviet Union. For this topic, we get a whole lot more of this guy and how he came to be walking with his cronies in front of the Eiffel Tower. All right, as always, first or the second page, you guys have the content. This is what we'll go through. Survey, kind of giving us that context in that kind of mid to late 30s time. Then we look again at the aims and strategies of Germany. That's the space and race, why they did what they did. And then we're going to take it a step further, a step further beyond just their ideology, and then how it influenced foreign policy, how it influenced how they engaged with the world around them. So the core gave us a lot of these things already, and this topic will be like, how do they put them into action into World War II? This next section, course of the war, that's really straightforward. It's just basically what happened in World War II, what happened right at the start, how did Nazis start taking continental Europe, what happened when they turned their eyes towards Britain, England. This next one's turning their eyes towards Russia, and this is the battle in North Africa. I spent a bit of time looking at the social and economic effects of civilians in all three countries, Britain, Germany, and the Soviet Union, and as well as a brief touch upon the nature and effects of the Holocaust. This last section just kind of finishes off the war. How did they start losing? And then what were the outcomes afterwards? So quite a big topic. This, as you can see, it didn't come up then. There we go, 136 pages. But like I was saying last week, it's actually a really simple one to keep track of. So whilst there's a lot of content, it's a very straightforward one. Just some key features that come up sometimes in terms of like the essay questions might focus on causes, aims and strategies, turning points, impact of the war on civilians, impact on of the Holocaust, and the reasons for victory. So they're kind of your really broad 6 topics for essay questions. Here's me being good and referencing where I got all my info from. All right. So at times you might have to pause this video to go and do some work, but I'll try and be as clear as I can, and hopefully technology works for you guys based off that website. All right, start with the introduction. By the mid-1930s, the hopes that have been placed in the League of Nations and the principle of collective security, the idea of everyone looks after each other and that'll keep people safe, so no one will attack one because the collective will fight back. The principle of collective security in the League of Nations for maintaining peace was fading fast. Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy were intent on revising the Paris Peace Settlement of 1919, peacefully or otherwise. With the United States mired in depression, which happened obviously in 1929, and the Soviet Union preoccupied with its economic transformation, it fell to Britain and France to deal with Germany and Italy, hoping to stave off war, because the Great War was such a huge tragedy that the Allied nations were willing to do almost anything to avoid it again. They followed a very controversial policy now, very popular at the time, controversial now, policy of appeasement. However, continued Nazi aggression eventually forced the abandonment of appeasement, and Britain and France reluctantly declared war on Germany in September of 1939. Germany defeated Poland within a month, so they had started invading on the 1st of September. They were done there within a month. In accordance with the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact that had been signed in August, just a week before the war, Germany took control of the western half of Poland, while the Soviet Union occupied the eastern half. So obviously on our little map down here, we have our Poland, you've got the USSR, you've got your Germany. Germany's been expanding more and more this way under their idea of Lebensraum, or living space. And they did this deal and said, all right, we'll take this huge chunk of beautiful agricultural land, but to appease and to make sure you guys don't fight us, the USSR, we're going to split it right up the middle. Germany took half, Soviet Union took the other half, at least until Germany invaded in 1941. Following a period of phony war, and we'll look at that a bit more, that was about 6 months after they invaded Poland, nothing happened. Nothing really major happened against the Allies. Hitler then moved west and quickly defeated Denmark, Norway, Netherlands, all up in here. So they kind of went up and then they came down here. Belgium and France. Now led by Winston Churchill, Britain held out against the Germans in the Battle of Britain and the Blitz, at least for a while. By mid-1941, the Germany and its allies controlled nearly all of Europe. June 1941, Hitler attacked the Soviet Union in what is known as Operation Barbarossa. Due to German errors and the harsh Russian winter, the Soviet Union narrowly avoided defeat. 1942, German forces moved deeper into the Soviet Union, reaching the city of Stalingrad. So this is, just to give you a bit of context while we're going through all this, it's just a pure summary of this whole topic. That's what we're going to cover. And it's a good little kind of rundown for you to give you an idea of where we're going. Can't remember what I got up to just then. Yeah, Stalingrad. The lives of civilians were affected enormously in Britain and Germany and Russia, as you'd expect during a massive war. Direct military attacks and the demand of total war brought the reality of war home to civilian populations like no other war in history had. People in German-occupied areas of Europe suffered enormously, none more so than the Jews, as the Nazis sought to systematically destroy Europe's Jewish population during the Holocaust. Following Germany's defeat, the true horrors of the Nazi rule became apparent as the concentration camps were opened. Those Nazis who were captured and failed to die by suicide were placed on trial at Nuremberg in 1946, charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity. So there's a bit of a summary of the topic. Background. Remember, we looked at World War I at the end of year 11, and the pure reason was so we could kind of understand what happened in that war leading up to the Treaty of Versailles, which we looked at in our core topic. And this is a bit of a revision of that, because what we looked at the core and where the dictators came from is shaping this whole world 1935 to 45 period of time. So again, it's a bit of a revision, bit of a reminder, that sort of stuff for you. When World War I came to a close in November 1918, Europe was swept with the feelings of relief, bitterness, and a desire to avoid another catastrophe at all times, at all costs. The Great War was referred to as the war to end all wars. The first steps in the path towards achieving lasting peace took place in Paris, 1919, where the victorious Allies met to work out the post-war peace settlement. 32 nations present, but the major decisions made by the big three, as we know, Britain, France, and the USA. These nations' leaders had widely differing views on how to deal with Germany and organise post-war Europe, which we all know about. So, in this box here on your paper, I want you to pause this video once I give the instructions, and then you can kick it off again in a second. First thing I want you to do is I want you to remember, identify the leaders of those three nations, okay, the big three, and then I want you to, but without cheating and going to the next few pages, I want you to write down the intentions that they had, or at least the issues plaguing them at this Paris Peace Conference. So what did France want out of it? What did Britain want out of it? And what did the United States want out of it? Okay, so leader, and then what they wanted to achieve out of the Paris Peace Conference. So pause here, and then have a go at that. Talk about it as a group, and then come back to it, okay? And you should be pressing playback now, and we will continue. And here are the answers, so don't look too far ahead. Such widely differing aims produce a peace settlement that pleased no one. The French believed that Germany had been let off too lightly. The Americans believed the peace... Actually, no, it doesn't give the answer, sorry. This is just the result. The French believed Germany had been let off too lightly. The Americans believed the peace treaty was too harsh. And the Germans, who had not been allowed into the peace conference, were outraged at the settlement. It became a fundamental aim of all post-war German politicians to destroy the hated Treaty of Versailles. That's that November criminals stab in the back mentality. That all comes from just how brutal the Treaty of Versailles was on Germany. British historian A.J.P. Taylor has argued that the peace settlement was far from being too harsh on Germany, a view shared more recently by historian Jürgen Temke in his 2017 book, A Perfidious Distortion of History, The Versailles Peace Treaty and the Success of the Nazis. Taylor wrote many years ago, the immediate problem was German weakness, but given a few years of normal life, it would again become the problem of German strength. And in fact, by 1932, Germany had thrown off the worst elements of the Treaty of Versailles, even before Hitler and the Nazis had come to power. So they'd really just shaken themselves from it within about 13 years or so. The great hope for peace after 1919 was the League of Nations. The basic principles behind the League was collective security, the notion that League members would unite to protect a fellow member who was attacked. It was believed that this would, and this comes up over and over, we define it 1,000 times because it's so important, but the notion that League members would unite to protect a fellow member who was attacked. We're seeing it all the time at the moment in the news with NATO and Russia. Russia is not attacking a range of other countries up north and was invaded Ukraine to stop them joining NATO because that has the idea of collective security as well. It's a similar concept for this. It was believed that this would be enough to deter aggressor nations. Now, during the 1920s, the League was successful in diffusing several conflicts. However, these had all involved minor powers, no kind of bigwigs throwing their weight around. When the League did have to deal with a major power, as was the case with Italy during the 1923 Corfu incident, it proved to be totally ineffective. By the early 1930s, hope in the League's ability to maintain long-term peace was fading fast. And here are some of the Here are some of the criticisms of the League of Nations by the early 30s that was leading it to being an ineffective group. They lacked any military force to back up its demands. So they couldn't actually just, say, do this or else. It was a powerless request. The organisation lacked the membership of several major powers. The USA had never actually been a member. Germany had withdrawn in 1933, as had Japan, and the Soviet Union did not join until 1934. The League proved incapable of preventing Japanese aggression in Manchuria. In 1931, Manchuria is in China. So when the Japanese invaded China, as we learn about in our China topic as well. I think we touched on it briefly in our core topic, where Japan was invading China to get more resources. The League did not enough to prevent that aggression. Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy had made it clear that it intended to revise the Paris Peace Settlement in its favour. And again, the League nations did nothing to really combat that. A disarmament conference ended in failure in 1934, and most countries were preoccupied with internal problems brought about by the Depression. So no one really cared so much about the League of Nations as all their things they wanted to achieve because they were too busy looking after themselves. So, I'll let you stew on that one. All right, I'll pause that for now, and we're going to move on to this next one in a second. But just so this video is not huge, that is an introduction. All right, brief touch upon the League of Nations, its weakness, a bit of a highlight on the Paris Peace Settlement and how influential it was in making the Germans annoyed, and then just quickly shook off the harsh treatment of it, the harsh outcomes of it, and a quick look at what everyone wanted to achieve. All right, so we'll pause it there, and then we'll dive into the next dot point. Thanks.